really, especially for her first effort, just a tremendous movie, and it won a lot of top documentary honors from critics organizations and stuff.
Oh my god! This is not a film about John Stockton, and if you don't know, I believe John Stockton is a top 5 point guard. Even though he may not have a left hand, he still found a way to succeed in the league and become a true generational talent. He deserves all the praise that he gets.
The year was 2019, and the NBA storyteller was face to face with fate. It had only been 13 months since he laid out the case against John Stockton's left hand, a quickly accepted and now commonly understood fact. But in certain pockets of the discourse, the revelation went off like a bomb. Aging Utah apologists would emerge from their hibernation, honed in on the storyteller. They unleashed their pent-up frustration. But to the storyteller, this grief was misguided. John was just a tool, just the tip of the iceberg, and the storyteller would not take the bait. As we established, there was so much more to say, bigger fish to fry, and John was no longer relevant.
Here we go. This is the beginning of the extension. Arms out, balls back, way back. No, it's a dribble. That's an amazing move. Look at this guy. This guy was good. I mean, he really did this point guard thing differently. But there's something so distinctly 80s about his play style. You know what's special about basketball? Of the major sports, hoops is the one that requires you to develop your offhand the most. I mean, Tom Brady isn't dinged because he can't finish with his left, or throw a touchdown, I guess. Baseball, well, that whole game is tailored around right or left side dominance. I mean, when you have switch hitters, that's rare, but also doesn't usually result in a great all-time hitting on both sides kind of player. It usually brings out the mediocrity in both sides. And then there's the rest of us humans, the non-professional basketball players. That's what I like to call myself. Nobody expects us to have any offhand dexterity. I mean, you could be a full-blown adult, completely educated, a professor, and still write like a goddamn 4-year-old with your offhand. And that's peak refinement in society. Multiple degrees, educated, got a beard. And you can't write with your left. Okay.
We're going somewhere.
Okay. We're going.
Okay.
This is when the storyteller sensed his own digression, as he slowly lost his ability to differentiate a convincing argument from desperation and pleading. He would continue on to assure his audience there is a greater point to all this, and it's not a ploy to rehash an old debate.
I have a much bigger point here, much bigger than one dude.
See?
I'm trying to solve problems here and define generations. We're going somewhere. Going the wrong way on a one-way street.
The storyteller's destination was near, but he has yet to introduce the bottom 90% of the iceberg. Maybe the task was ours all along. So, let's start in the 1980s. This is an era obscured by nostalgia, legend, the abundance of highlights, and a lack of deeper narrative. But it wasn't the Dark Ages. It was just recent enough, just covered enough to bolster and justify the careers that emerged from that era. The league was integrated. The average height had finally crossed over to legitimately tall. We were past the all-important merger, and the three-point line gave us the familiar court we recognize today. And with these framings, marketing, and progression in TV broadcasting, it became easy to include this early era within our modern basketball qualifier. But it can quickly become apparent that the attitudes and approach of the 80s has less in common with the 90s and aughts than the 50s and 60s, when players had day jobs, drove themselves to away games, and potential all-time greats were never let into the league.
And here we are. Big statement ahead. I believe, and the evidence shall show, that the 80s should just be thrown out and disregarded as a cute age of basketball development, much like the 50s. We don't consider those players to be all-time skilled players, but we understand it's important for the progress of the league. The 80s are that also. I mean, don't get me wrong, was it hard to win professional basketball championships in 1981?
Yeah.
Did you have to be really, really good at basketball to make it?
Yeah.
Is there some gray area towards the end of the 80s where there was some skill, some unique modern basketball being played? Well, yeah, but that's my point. That's the whole point. The late 80s is when a few key discoveries were made, and it basically all happened at once. And we are going there. But for now, I just want to highlight how freaking different our game is between then and now. And I'm going to call this section, this chapter, Clearly F***ing Obvious. I don't think I'll keep up this chapter name thing for the whole piece, but let's do one. Chapter 1. And since it is clearly f***ing obvious, I'm going to do it quickly. If you want to hear exactly what I'm saying, either listen up or slow it down. Here we go. The training, dedication, and expectations of a player in the 21st century isn't found in any circumstance in the early or mid-80s. The obvious is the advancement in training and the ability to develop. Almost all in-game obstacles can be recreated in a practice setting. A simple exercise like taking contact, holding in the air, and finishing a layup was essentially non-existent in 1985. And that extends to dribbling, ball control, hand-eye coordination, even the almost universal ability leaping. This was once a mystical ability bestowed upon a blessed child like head size or double-jointed thumbs. Now we've cracked the code on leaping ability. See? Look at this kid. And the solidifier in today's refined and expanded ability is something even more basic: age. The level in which kids train and gain actual useful basketball skills, including the concept of being on the road and being legitimately organized, can all start as early as a parent once. Look at this kid. With his existence, this trajectory does not exist anywhere in the 80s. Fitness, muscle endurance, health, eating, the shaping of human vessels was not anywhere close to today's. Gone are the times of finding a 6'10" African who never touched a basketball till the age of 16, because every man from 1 to 12 on teams now is truly developed. Gone are the big men for big men's sake, the lumbering giants who offer not much more than an obstacle in front of a goal. Players start so young, even the eventual 7-footers learn the same ball handling and point guard skills that eventually point guards do. Gone are the crowd-rousing moments when Yao puts up a 3 in an all-star game, to even the announcer's delight. Gone are the times when Shaq faced up and dribbled in the most basic way to a crowd seemingly reacting to a Game 7 buzzer beater. Gone are the days that the 11th and 12th man were cheered on by the crowd just when they get in the game and vigorously applauded at a chance of an actual score. And this is because a 12th man in true modern era form isn't a lucky chance story. And a simple exploration around the league reveals just that. The talent is so great, the pool of talent is worldwide, and the league is limited, which means every single player must be a skilled player. And none of this should even be up for debate. And for real, as the commentary community expands, we are going to find out more and more how far behind the 80s were in terms of basketball ability. And for all the players that we deem great, all the careers and legacies that hang around the top of our top 10 lists that were developed in the 80s will come crashing down. They will live on as pillars and shoulders to stand on, but in terms of skill in placing one player over another player, these players represented a different time and a different ability. All these legendary legacies that have coasted for decades have been or will be called into question. For us, to this point, history has been handed down to us, handed down to the following era of players and fans. But it's this era of fans that will finally test that history. What I want to do is start simple in a very obvious way. I want to level our understanding of an era that some feel way too familiar with, the 80s. And the way I want to show this is through one skill. A skill that at one point seemed to be more of an inconvenience than a skill. Dribbling. We are in a dribbling paradise. Look at these moves. Look at these whippy-doos. Look at this woobity-doobits. And that flibbity stare down, and shabbity shamgod, and scorbity stepbacks, and stibbity side swipes. And of course, this combo badoobity. Look at these moves! These are amazing, but I'm more interested in something simple. Something simple that was so important. I want to know when this turned into this. When did this turn into this? Into this. I want to know what turned this.
Jordan can throw it off.
It was another late night for the storyteller. During daylight, between government work and tending to the needy dozen, there isn't much time for fun. Okay, but he's on a warpath to clarify why exactly professional athletes dribble like that. Is that it? That's all?
Yeah, man, that's it. Read what it says. All right. Just wake him up, okay?
Okay.
What is this? What is this? What is this?
Hey, storyteller. I think your videos are great. You present a lot of useful information in a very entertaining way. Your video about John Stockton not having a left was great, but there's a lot more that needs to be said about him if you want to break down the dirty little secrets of his career.
No, I don't want it.
That's all?